I'm Mitchell Klusty, and I'm a software developer here at the Center for Applied Artificial Intelligence, and today we're going to be introducing LLM Factory. LLM Factory is a self-service tool that easily connects you to different AI models. When we first come onto the interface, we land on this playground page, and from here it looks a lot like ChatGPT or any other AI model that you're probably used to talking to, and we can just say, "Hello, how are you?" And then the model is going to respond to that. So then we can also configure the model so that it involves adding a system prompt here, which could be like, maybe talk like a pirate. And then when I respond to the model here, now the model responds to me as if it's a pirate. I can also adjust some of the settings like the number of tokens that it's going to produce and the temperature. And I can also pick an adapter that I want to use. And what an adapter is it's training additional information into a model. So that allows you to add specific knowledge that the model doesn't have trained into it by default, but you want to add on the side. And for instance, a lot of these models are code generation models. So with these models turned on, the overall model will be better at generating code. So there we go. I asked the model to create a Python script for me that will find if a string is a palindrome, and it did that. Next, we can go to the adapters page. So this is a list of the available adapters that we have publicly available on LLM Factory. And those adapters are the code generation models that we just said, but any adapters that you train through LLM Factory are going to show up here as well. You can also see your adapter configurations. So what that is if you want to mix and match different adapters to serve a certain purpose, then you'll be able to set weights and adjust the factor on how strong one adapter is versus another. And then you can combine those all together and use those as one model. Next, let's get into training. So when you want to train an adapter, you first come to the datasets page. You can then upload your dataset. So then once that gets uploaded, we're ready to train an adapter from it. So we can click this button to start a job, and that'll take us to this page. And if we want to name the adapter that's going to come out of it, let's call it just test adapter. Then we can adjust the different settings. So there's the model name. Currently, the only available one is MetaLlama 3 8B. The epochs that you want to train for, the learning rate of the model, the LoRa rank, and the LoRa alpha and targets. So what these are is the LoRa rank controls how complex the adapter is going to be. So a higher rank is going to make it more expressive and make it a bit more intelligent based on your adapter. The alpha is going to adjust how the layer's weight is going to affect the model. So that means that the LoRa layers, they act more strongly on the base model than the base model's weights if you set the alpha higher. And then the targets are going to be which parts of the model you're going to adjust. So those are different options. There's QProj, KProj, VProj, OProj, all the way down. So then we can start this job. And once that's completed, it'll get queued into the adapter, or queued into the jobs, and then that'll get sent off to our DGX cluster here, which is a high performance computing cluster that CAI runs. And that will, once the job is ready to be taken up, that will start training, and it'll create your adapter. And usually with a smaller data set and low epochs, that only takes about 20 minutes, but with a larger data set and more epochs and larger training variables, that can take up to like 3 hours roughly. But once it's done, it's going to join these adapters up here in your completed jobs. So again, those adapters will just let us fine-tune the model, so it will allow us to take a data set and add that knowledge to the model. So that model will be able to make decisions based on that data set in a way that it wouldn't be able to if we hadn't trained that data because it didn't exist there before. Another cool concept that we've created is projects. So on this page, if I create a project, then I can set different adapters that I want to add to the project. And those adapters will be available only within the scope of the project. And then I can share with other members. So I can add people. Let's add Aaron and Caroline. So now Caroline and Aaron both have access to the adapters that I've trained that are able to that they're able to query as if they had trained them. So it puts it in the same scope that they're able to access, whereas before they wouldn't be able to. And the last really big concept that is probably my favorite part of LLM Factory is the API access. So through LLM Factory, we host 3 different types of models. There's the chat model, the embeddings model, and the transcription model. So the chat model is your basic, I give you a query and the model spits out a response. The embedding model is taking text and putting it into a vector form that can be used in RAG. And the transcription model is sending an audio file that can only be about 30 seconds given the limitations of using the web API, but it will generate a transcription of that audio file and respond with the text of that transcription to you. So to use that API, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come up here and select API keys under your user. And then we can create a new API key, call it test key. And then it will generate this API key. So from here, we can copy this key and put it into code that is using the OpenAI compatible API that we have generated. So what OpenAI compatible API means is, since OpenAI was the first really big LLM model to come out, they have generated the API access for the API format for how you should send your requests to the model. And everyone else has kind of followed them and done the same thing that they have and based their API access and their code off of that API format. So what that means is that any library that's meant to work with OpenAI, like your LangChain or your just general OpenAI library or any other library that is dedicated to using OpenAI, you can use LLM Factory instead. So you just have to adjust the URL from an OpenAI URL to LLM Factory and then put your API key in there in the same way that you would with OpenAI. And then from that, you're able to access the chat completions API, the embedding API, and the transcription API. So that was a quick overview of the front end of LLM Factory and what that looks like and how you can navigate our tool. But we also have a user guide that goes into some of the more detailed aspects of how you use the site and how you go about training an adapter. So we talked about how you perform the training of the adapter on the website, but how you actually get the data set generated is a much more complicated thing that we can't get into here. But if you look at the user guide or if you send one of us an email, then we'll be happy to help you set up a data set to train an adapter. If you want to use RAG, so if you want to use our embedding model to create a vector database, then we can explain that as well, and the user guide goes into that. And anything else that you have questions on, you can consult the user guide, or again, you can send one of us an email and we'd be happy to help.